Hello guys, this is Ben from the Tellery. This is our first little reading thing. For today, if you haven't caught from the title, we'll be reading Peter Pan. This is my Treasury of Illustrated Classics copy of the book. I had this like many years ago. This is one of my old favorites. Thought I should read it to you guys. Since I couldn't find an online copy, I decided to aim the camera at the table. You would not believe how difficult it is to read this right now. Alright, so Peter Pan, Treasury of Illustrated Classics by J.M. Barrie. With Captain Hook in red and Peter Pan with his tiny sword right there. I always wondered how I did that, but anyways. Blank page. Peter Pan! Yet again adapted, illustrated, contents. Let's start with chapter 1. Peter breaks through, starting on page 9. Oh, cover art by Marcel Laverdette. Okay. Hold on, let's skip the page. Chapter 1. I like the way they did the chapter titles in this book. It's lovely. There's 12 chapters. We'll probably do chapter 1 for today. Get you guys a good taste of what it's like, even though it's really short. And the texts are huge. It's great for reading. Peter breaks through. This is chapter 1, by the way. All children, except one, must grow up. The way Wendy knew was this. One day when she was a very little girl, she picked a flower from the garden to show her mother. Mrs. Darling held the flower over her heart. "Oh, Wendy," she said with a loving smile, "why can't you stay like this forever?" Wendy was just 2 years old, but from that moment on, she knew that she must grow up. Wendy's mother was a lovely lady. Mr. Darling knew that when he married her, he loved her and she loved him. He liked to boast that she also respected him, which she did. At first, the Darlings worried if they could afford children. But before each child was born, Miss Darling said, "Of course we can, George. We'll watch every penny." First came Wendy, then John, and Michael was last. So you guys hadn't caught it? There are 3 children. And by the way, this is not some stupid Disney thing, okay? I'm kidding. Disney's cool. Disney's cool. It's just that Disney changed the story. So, you know, it's a little different than what you guys may know. That's what the cool thing is that you get the OG script. The original gangster script, you know? Yeah. The Darlings had a nurse for the children because Mrs. Darling liked everything just so, and Mr. Darling wanted to be just like their neighbors. Peer pressure, clearly. But since they were poor, the nurse was Nana, a very proper Newfoundland dog they found in Kensington Gardens. So it's the dog, you know, from the Disney movies. Nana was a very good nurse. She learned to be a nurse by watching the other nurses in the park. She made sure the children bathed properly. She knew when a cough was just a cough and nothing serious. And if one of them cried at night, she was up in an instant to see why. That was easy because she lived in the children's room. Alright. When the children started school, Nana made sure they got there safely. She walked primly alongside them, butting anyone who strayed out of line. She made sure John didn't forget his soccer sweater, and if it looked like rain, she carried an umbrella in her mouth. At school, Nana stayed in the basement, while the children sat in classrooms upstairs. What a nice dog. I personally don't really like dogs too much. They scare me. But you know, a nice dog. Nana didn't like Miss Darling's friends to make surprise visits to the children's room, but if they came, she quickly dressed Michael in a clean outfit, brushed Wendy's hair, and tried her best to do something with John's hair. She was a very proper nurse, even though Mr. Darling wondered if the neighbors thought it odd to have a dog for a nurse. After all, he had his position in the city to consider. There was never a happier family until the coming of Peter Pan. Oh snap, here comes the real deal. Mrs. Darling first heard of Peter while tidying up her children's minds when they were sleeping. Children don't... oh shoot, I got it. Children don't know mothers do this, but they do. It's a little like tidying up drawers. So basically, moms every night, they clean up your minds. apparently. They tidy up their children's minds while they're asleep. So you gotta be careful what you think about when you're sleeping, or else your mom's gonna... Well, you know, that's very awkward if you thought of some... Yeah. It's, okay. Every child has a special place called Neverland, filled with strange and wonderful spots that are his or her own. Each Neverland is different. Some have rivers and reefs and gnomes and princes and caves of every kind. Others, like John's, had a lagoon where he lived on the sand in a boat turned upside down. Michael's also had a lagoon where he lived in a wigwam, while Wendy's had a house made with leaves. Neverland is filled with wondrous adventures, and at night, just before you go to sleep, it seems very, very real. I wonder what my Neverland would be like. Hey guys, what would your Neverland be like? I'm looking at you. Yeah, what would your Neverland be like? Post a thing in the comments. Tell me what your Neverland would be like, you know? Well, it'll be kind of interesting to see what your Neverland would be like. I think mine would probably be filled with parkour ninja swords or something. I don't know. Mrs. Darling didn't know anyone named Peter, but there he was in every child's mind. "Who is Peter?" she asked Wendy. "He is Peter Pan," Wendy replied. It's like Jack Sparrow. "Captain Jack Sparrow." And that's kind of funny actually, because there's a pirate on the... I'm funny. Anyways. At first, Mrs. Darling was puzzled. Then she remembered her own childhood and someone called Peter Pan who was said to live with fairies. People said he comforted children. Mrs. Darling believed in him then. But he grew up now. "But he's grown up now," she said to Wendy. "Oh no," Wendy said. "He isn't grown up at all, and he's just my size." When Mrs. Darling told Mr. Darling about Peter Pan, he laughed and said it was some of Nana's nonsense. "Forget it, and it will go away," he said. But it didn't. One morning, Wendy awoke to find tree leaves scattered about the bedroom floor. They weren't there when she and the boys had gone to bed. "Oh, it was just Peter," she said when her mother asked how they got there. "He didn't wipe his feet as he should when he comes in the window," Wendy smiled. "Sometimes he would come in at night and play his pipes at the foot of my bed," she said. Mrs. Darling was shocked. "Why, you must be dreaming," she said. But the leaves were real and came from a tree she had never seen before. Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum. Oh yeah, picture. Yeah. Alright. Wendy had not been dreaming, and the very next night an extraordinary adventure began. It was Nana's night off, so Mrs. Darling tucked the children to bed. Wow, okay, well, the nurse apparently has a night off. They didn't put that in the Disney movie now, did they? She gazed at them tenderly as she sat by the fireplace to sew. So Mrs. Darling was sewing, not the dog sewing. Anyways, the fire was warm and the room was bathed in soft light. Soon she began to doze. While she slept, she had a dream. In a dream, Neverland came out too near and a strange boy got out. The boy had torn the curtains that usually covers Neverland, and Wendy and John and Michael were peeking through. Picture. Mrs. Darling dreamed the nursery window blew open and the boy flew into the room. She thought she recognized him. At his side was a tiny bright light no bigger than a fist. So smaller than this. Dang, that's a small little fairy. I think it's a fairy. Maybe it's a pixie, I don't know. It darted through the room as if it were alive. Oh boy. A strange light awakened Mrs. Darling. She put her hands to her mouth in surprise, for she knew at once that the boy was the Peter Pan. The legendary Peter Pan. Anyways, Miss Darling cried out at the sight of the strange boy. At that moment, Nana entered the room, back from her evening out. She too saw the boy, and not knowing what to think, leapt at him with a fierce growl. And that's chapter 1. I know it's kind of short, considering it's only like 10 pages, and the text is huge, but, you know, I think we should just start off with this. This way you guys get to know what's going on, whether you should keep watching this or not. If you're deciding not to keep watching, I suggest you keep watching. If you're going to keep watching, I am happy with your choice, and you will keep watching. We will do chapter 2 next time. And that is it for today.